This is it. This is the last video I'm going to be doing on the KLR before it's gone. As of right now, if you're watching this video within a week of it coming out, then it will be for sale in the description of this video. But there's a few things I want to get sorted on it before I list it. And after doing a few mechanical bits in the last video, it's mostly cosmetic stuff I want to tidy up now. And there's that one big cosmetic change that I mentioned in the last video. I'm a little bit nervous about it because I've never done it before. But before I do that, there's one more big mechanical thing I need to do, and that's give it an oil and filter change. Now with the oil filter change, it's time to do the air filter. But after seeing what the air filter housing looked like, we'll come back to this a little bit later. Now this bike's generally in really good condition, but one of the biggest eyesores I think is this exhaust. And I've been thinking about taking it off and painting it, but to be honest, these nuts are kind of worrying me a little bit, because I feel like as soon as I try and take them off, they're going to snap. And there's a pretty good chance they will snap, and that's the reason why I've been spraying release spray on them for the best part of the last week. And if the studs snap inside the head, I might have to take the engine out to get the studs removed. So fingers crossed they come out easily. Okay, there's a bit of movement on that one. It wasn't as hard as I thought. Okay, that one's considerably tighter. I'm going to do it up a little bit first. There's a little bit of movement. If I just take my time with this, I might be able to avoid a disaster. And after going backwards and forwards more times than I could count, I finally managed to get the first one off. One down. Shortly followed by the second one. There it is. And now I can remove the other fixings and take the whole exhaust off. And if I'm going to do a proper job at painting this, I've got to take off this exhaust shield. So hopefully these rusty screws won't snap. Well, I'm sure the second one will go a lot better. Right, that one just disintegrated. Nothing's as easy as it looks ever, is it? So I was left with no choice but to drill the old rusty screw out. So after doing that, I could get this heat shield off. And with that removed, I now have to try and remove the end of that broken screw. So I thought, why not try a set of cheap extractors I had? Alright, I've never used these before. It'd be interesting to see if they even work. And they were cheap, so they obviously didn't. Even with a bit of heat, that still didn't help. Alright, that ain't working. So I decided I'd have to cut off the old nuts and weld on some more. Luckily, my dad has a TIG welder, but unfortunately, he was away for the weekend, so I'd have to do it myself. And in hindsight, I wish I'd spent a little bit more time practicing, as I've only TIG welded a handful of times and never very well. But after cleaning up the exhaust with a wire brush, I decided to just go for it. Yeah, seemed like it went a little bit better than last time. And although the welds weren't pretty, they were structurally strong and they'll do the job to hold on the heat shield. Although we'll just ignore the fact that I decided to add more weld and turn it into this monstrosity. Jesus Christ, that's terrible. But it's on there. And somehow, amongst dipping the tungsten and forgetting to put the ground lead on at the same time, I managed to get the second one on as well. TIG welding is not my forte, but it's going to hold, I think. And now that was done, I could remove as much rust as I can off of all the other parts. And after getting the parts home, sanding them all down for paint, masking up the air filter, and cleaning the parts so they were ready to spray, I remembered I also wanted to respray the radiator covers, so I took them off. Then I wire brushed them to remove all the loose paint and rust. And then I decided that all the parts I prepared weren't good enough, so they're going in the rust removal solution to see if that does a better job. A few days later I came back with a plan to fit some new indicators to the front of the bike. As they were starting to split, just like the back ones did. Luckily this was just super easy, it was just one bolt and 2 wires for each indicator. Although on this channel things are never that easy, when I came to test them I realised something wasn't quite right. They worked to begin with, but after I turned the ignition off once, there was nothing I could do to make them come back on again. The battery was brand new, so I didn't think it could be that. So I might have found a little electrical problem, which I didn't think initially was a problem. I thought it was just how the bike was. But before I fix that, I need to have a look at all these parts that I put into the rust remover and see how well it's cleaned those up. Because they've been in here for about 4 days now, so let's clean them off. And once again I'm amazed at how well this stuff worked. I wasn't really expecting this, but it's actually cleaned all the carbon off the inside of the pipe. And as impressive as that is, looking at it isn't going to clean the rest of these parts. Now I mentioned there's a problem with this wiring, and what I thought was part of how the bike was meant to be is that when the ignition's on, I thought the lights weren't meant to come on unless the engine's running, and yet the lights do come on when the engine's running, but they don't come on when it's not. Although now it does. Interesting. There we go. Okay, so it seems to store an amount of power somewhere, and once it's gone, it's gone. I'm not entirely sure why it does that. So I've had a look at a wiring diagram, and you can see this white wire down here. That's 12 volts directly from the battery, and then it goes through here, through and round into this connector that goes up to the ignition. And then down here, we've got a brown wire. This should be back out of the ignition. We should have 12 volts at that brown wire when the ignition's on. And that brown wire powers the lights. So let's check first of all to make sure we've got 12 volts at that battery wire. There we go. So we're getting 12.64 volts to the white wire. And then the brown wire should get the same voltage when the ignition's on. Okay, it does. But if I turn the lights on, it drops to 1 volt. Or less than that now. So I think there might be a problem possibly in the ignition side or a ground. Okay, so I've traced all the wires all the way down to this is the only main ground I can find. So I'm going to try cleaning that up first before I go too much into it. To get to these ground wires, I need to remove these nuts, and then I can remove the coil pack, and that will give me access to clean these grounding points. And while I'm at it, the other end of the wire grounds on the radiator, so I might as well clean that too. And now all those connections are clean, I can reinstall the coil, and hopefully that fixes our problem. Moment of truth, how does that fix the issue? We have a neutral light out, and then as soon as I turn on any other lights, it goes off again. Okay, that hasn't fixed it. And at this point I'm thinking it's something to do with the ignition switch. So the first thing I'm checking is the connector block that joins all the wires together. Appears to be absolutely fine. That plug looked pretty clean though, so it definitely wasn't that. On this plug however, it looks pretty corroded. After removing the 2 corroded wires ready to fit some new connectors, I had an idea that if I made a jumper cable like this Now I can use this to jump those two wires and hopefully no magic smoke escapes. It does have a main fuse, so this should be okay and should basically be like as if I'm turning the ignition on. And that would allow me to figure out whether or not it was the switch causing the problem or something else further down the wiring loom. Alright, with that jumper in there, it's doing exactly the same thing. So I got neutral light, but then as soon as I turn the switch to turn the lights on, the neutral goes out and it uses up all the power that's residual just sitting there, and it doesn't seem to want to turn anything on. So that to me suggests the switch isn't the problem, because it's got to be something further down this line. And this is where I'm starting to think I'm a little bit out of my depth, but I was in for a stroke of luck. Okay, so I've traced this brown wire all the way down the loom to the back of the regulator rectifier, which I've now unplugged, which is here. And there's this connector is very black in there, and so is the brown one. But with the regulator rectifier unplugged, turn the lights on, and we have lights, and all the lights work. So, all working at the same time. So that makes me think, clean those up, and hopefully that'll fix it. So I cleaned up all the connectors, and then I found the real problem. So I think I found the problem. I was just trying to get this cable out to clean it, and it is snapped straight off as soon as I pulled it. And as you can see, it's pretty corroded in there, so I think we found our problem. Let me repair that and then give it a go. So after spending the next 20 minutes wrestling with this connector to try and get it out, that was when my luck was about to run out. So I saw this ground wire, looked a little bit corroded, and I thought, I'll just take it back a little bit, I'm sure the wire's clean underneath. So I took back some of the tape covering the wires, and that is when I started to discover a few strange things that didn't look very OEM. I don't know what the hell this repair is. Maybe someone in the comments can help me. Did Kawasaki ever sellotape their crimp connectors? I'm not convinced they did, and now I've found this, I can't with a clean conscience leave it like this. So I'm removing all the sellotape, and then I'm going to solder the connections together. And just to rub salt in the wound, I thought I'd have a look at how this ground wire looks a bit further up. And it looks like it doesn't matter how far I take this wire back, it's just black and corroded the whole way. But it's one thing at a time, and I'll come back to that after I've tidied up those dodgy sellotape crimp connectors. Now with them looking a little bit tidier, I can turn my attention back to this wire. And it's actually the ground wire. Although I think the connector going into the rectum pry was probably the main cause of the electrical problems, this wire being corroded can't have been helping. And unfortunately, the wire was still bad this far up the loop. So I took the tape back even further, and you're never going to guess what I found. Here we go, more tape, as I expected. This cannot be how the loom was from factory, right? I'll be amazed if that's how it is from factory. And yet again, more tape. And after cleaning off all the tape residue, this cannot be a factory wiring loom, right? And looking at the state of some of these connectors, they were pretty corroded and joined multiple wires together. Wasn't really sure this was how it was meant to be, especially when looking at how the back lights were wired in. But going back to the whole reason I took this tape off, this ground wire is still black all this way back. So I'm going to fit all new connectors and fit a completely brand new ground wire. And this is probably the most in-depth wiring I've ever done. And I don't claim to be good at wiring, but I'm trying to do my best. Now all the wiring's done, I'm going to recover it with electrical tape to protect it from the weather. And the last thing to do is replace that really dodgy connector that was causing all the problems. Now I can reconnect the rectifier, reconnect the battery, and then I can test it. Right, so, moment of truth. Are we going to have lights now, or is this just going to blow everything up? Okay, we have a neutral light. Do the lights come on? We have a side light and a main light. Do we still have indicators? Yes. On the left hand side. And on the right hand side. Brake light. Yep. Side light. So it looks like after all that work we do actually have some working lights now. Really thought I felt some heat then. Thought I felt some heat when I had my hand down here. I don't think I did. I think I'm just imagining things. I don't trust my own wiring. But I think it's working. I think I need to trust it this time because it seems like it works. So that's the first time I've ever done any sort of recovering wires, and I think it turned out okay. It doesn't look any worse than it already did, I guess, because it looks like someone had already had a go before. But I'm quite happy with how it's turned out. Going to tidy up this and just cover that so it's a bit more protected since it is right in the wheel arch. But other than that, pretty good I think. And with everything working, the headlight can go back together. Then I can move on to paint prep in the other parts. I'd used some metal filler to repair the heat shield, and whilst I was working on smoothing it out, some people came into the garage to criticise my work. What do you mean? What's wrong with it?
Shoddy work.
Oh, alright. Yeah, there was always dips. It's where it's like tack welded on the back.
Okay, well you can smooth them out. Yeah.
No, because that would be taken away from the originality of the shape. So Steve,
I didn't
what do you think, Steve? Do you approve?
Well, apart from those two bits that we discussed.
Can you get a thumbs up? It's not a very enthusiastic thumbs up, was it?
It's very good, Christopher.
Yeah, excellent. There we go, that's it. That'll do. I started off by cleaning all the parts with a degreaser, followed by lots of light coats of ultra high temp paint. Then I could move on to finally finishing the service I started at the beginning of this video by fitting a new air filter. And it's not going to work like this, it needs to be oiled first. I made sure to work the oil into the filter, and after letting it dry a bit, it could go into the newly painted filter housing, and then I could put it back into the airbox. Then I can refit the exhaust shield with some nice new shiny bolts and put the exhaust back on. And I know this bike isn't exactly pristine, and there's lots of other little bolts that could be tidied up, but I think it looks so much better with the exhaust not being covered in rust. If you remember what it looked like before, it's a pretty big improvement. And then, the final part of the service is to refit the sump plug with a brand new crush washer, and luckily Kawasaki put the amount of oil we need here on the engine. So I can refill the right amount, put the rest of the bike back together, and then it's time to tackle the big change I spoke about at the start of the video. And now there's one more big cosmetic change that I want to make to this bike, which I think will improve the whole look of the entire bike, and that is the seat. As you can see, it's got this kind of scaliness on it, I think from sun damage or I don't really know what, just years of being in the weather. So I got a new cover for it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to my dad's where he's got a compressor, and I can use an air stapler to fit the new cover. So I started off by removing all of the rusted staples holding on the old seat cover, working my way around with a screwdriver and some pliers until they were all out, and this part was definitely the easiest. Then I could remove the screws holding on the old strap, which were a bit seized, but came apart without too much fuss. Then I could pull the old manky cover off and give the seat a quick clean with soap and water to get most of the mud off the underside. Now I can get the new seat cover and strap out and offer it up against the seat. Luckily, it's quite a bit bigger than the original, so it should give me enough material to pull it tight. I'm pretty nervous about making a mistake as it took me weeks to find this cover with the correct Kawasaki decals on, and even then it was from a company in Thailand with only one left in stock, so it means I've only got one shot to fit this without messing it up. Here we go, in goes the first staple. And after the nerves of the first staple were gone, it was pretty easy from then on. I put in a few more. I was even starting to gain some confidence that I knew what I was doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. But that was all about to come crashing down, as there was an obvious problem I'd been missing so far. Hello? Alright? Not particularly. It's a little bit, I think it's a little bit thinner material than the original seat, so some of these staples are like trying to pull through.
Ah, right.
They're just ripping.
Have you used any glue on it?
No, but then the other original one didn't have any glue on it.
Oh.
No.
More shape though in it, because that one's sitting way up on. It's not.
Well, that's what I thought, but then I watched a few videos of people doing it, and all they did was just kept pulling it and pulling it and pulling it, to the point where eventually it did sit down on there. I don't know how, but they were literally just pulling it a bit tighter, a bit tighter, a bit tighter, and it did eventually come down onto the seat, but I don't know how that happened. But then I've just realised what I've done here. Look, this Kawasaki's higher than that Kawasaki, so the whole thing needs to go over that way a little bit. But then I think also the whole thing needs to shift back a tiny bit, maybe, because if you look where the strap was on this one, you got like a little gap there, and I mean that's where the strap sits, so it's kind of on the edge of where that is. I'm not sure whether I've it basically.
Just because I mean the staples aren't going to show. It would appear the stuff's very stretchy. So maybe you just need to stretch it back a bit further.
Yeah. You might need to go back further that way, the whole thing. That's the only problem. So otherwise the strap's going to cover the end of this bit. Because I can feel the strap's there. It might not cover it, but yeah, it's like the groove where it goes. Like.
It's going to be close, but
it's hard because as soon as I stapled one end and then pulled the other end, the whole thing shifted by like quite a bit.
It is, as you say, very stretchy, isn't it? So
it has literally, it's just ripped these staples straight through. So there's nothing holding these on. That staple's gone through the holes, and then there's just like a little bit of thread hanging on. As you can see here, the staples are going in with so much force that they're cutting a line in the material. But then my dad came up with an idea of how we could maybe make it work.
if the material is a bit thin, then my only other suggestion would be to get some other thicker material, cut a strip of it and staple through that material, through the seat material.
It looks like it's similar
Like
to
what they've done there, yeah. Because they haven't stapled this, they've stapled the bit they've sewed to it. That looks like probably what you should be doing, but
so it should have had another bit of material sewn to it, you reckon?
well, it's looking that way, isn't it?
Yeah. So I started removing the staples I'd already done, while Dad went and got the other material he had. Although he wasn't the only one with a great idea.
I think lager time.
I also think lager time. Maybe I could just do it green like that.
You've got material there, Christopher. Well, like I say, that I would say
Oh, that looks a lot
is
more
probably a bit
robust.
more.
Yeah.
So if I was you, I'd cut a bit out of there, dunk to a bit of wood, and just see what. To a bit of wood and stretch it and see if it rips through.
Try it with just one. Oh, yeah, it went straight through.
Did it? Oh, that's no good then.
And then I think we all had the same thought at the same time. But I don't know if it's...
Maybe you got
Is
too
it the pressure?
Yeah,
maybe
maybe the pressure, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it's almost like cutting through it, yeah.
Well, I've turned it down a bit, try it
What's
again.
it on there? Oh, that's a lot better. Maybe a little bit less again. I think 60 is the minimum, it said. That seems pretty good. It's better than it was. I mean, it's still...
That's not up to 60 yet, but it's obviously
It's still pushing straight into the wood bit. Like, that's better than it was. Even with the stapler at less than the minimum it was meant to work at, it was still going quite deep into the wood. But that wood block was much softer than the plastic of the seat, so when I tested it out on the seat, it looked about right. Doesn't seem to have ripped straight through it like it did before. And just like that, we were back in business, and I could start making some real progress. Like I said, this is my first ever time trying to do any kind of upholstery, and I've got a newfound respect for anyone who does this full time. I had to keep pulling the material tight, stapling it, then removing other staples somewhere else to pull that side of the material tight, then restaple it and keep repeating this until the top of the seat slowly pulled down, all while trying not to move the material so much that the decal stayed in the right place. Sometimes the job felt like it needed more than 2 hands, but thankfully Dad was there to help. Nice, thank you very much. And eventually the seat started to take shape. Oh, so nearly there. So nearly there.
Yeah, it's not many miles away, is it?
It's a huge relief the cover seems to be coming down onto the seat, because I was worried it wouldn't, but now I have to do the back edges, and they're easily the most difficult bit. Trying to get so much material into a tiny space was difficult, but I just about managed it. And after I was finally happy with the position of the cover, I could put the final run of staples all around the outside, and then I could start trimming off the excess. And it was at this point Dad decided to point something out.
Just don't f***ing slip and put a big slash through.
You know what, I've been thinking about being careful not to do that the whole time I've been doing this.
Yeah, sorry to put that thought in your mind.
No, I mean it was there. I've been thinking about, it was especially this bit down here.
Just one little nick that then turns into a stretched hole.
Yeah, literally, I thought if I catch this edge while I'm doing down that gap, that was going to be it. That'd be it over. I'll be throwing it down the garden.
But it looked like I got through the trimming without incident, and I was quite happy with how it was looking so far.
That one Kawasaki
go.
seat.
Well, you haven't quite finished it yet.
No, I haven't finished it yet, but
No, to
let
be
me
fair,
appreciate it.
To be fair, it looks like a newly upholstered Kawasaki seat. There's nothing wrong with that.
But my dad was right. I still had to sort out the new strap, which meant removing the ends off the old dirty one,
Nice.
matching it up to the new strap and cutting it to size. And then with a punch and some very careful wiggling, cut the new holes for the bolts. Then I could transfer the end to the new strap, repeat for the other side, and then very carefully make some holes in the new seat for them to go through.
Splendid job.
And if I didn't know better, it almost felt like someone was trying to wind me up.
Splendid job
I
indeed.
don't want to sort of worry you, but just don't slip with that screwdriver.
Stop it.
But then they helped me when I needed to screw the other side on, so I'll let them off. And with that last screw, the seat's finally finished. And for a first attempt, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Then, all that was left to do was fit the new seat. Although I couldn't do that just yet, because some numpty had broken off one of the seat bolts. Still, this was a perfect opportunity for the bolt extractors to redeem themselves. Or maybe not. So after that failed, I drilled them out from M6 to M8 and tapped a thread for the larger bolt, which was probably a better size for it anyway. I repeated the same on the other side. Then I could put the final piece of the puzzle together by fitting the seat. And now it's ready for sale. But I've got to have some fun on it first, right?
Good morning, world, it's a brand new day. I'm packing my bags and I'm getting away. I'm moving my legs and my city tight bones. I gotta get away from the busy man's bones. Down where the living is so wild and free. If you wanna get happy, then people come along with me. A beep, bow, 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 bow.
I've only been off-road a couple of times before, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm pretty useless. And my river crossings could use a lot of work. In my defence, the rocks were really slippy, but despite that, I've never had so much fun. So, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't fallen in love with this bike just a little bit. I do want to keep it, but unfortunately, I can't afford for this channel to just be me collecting bikes that I've fallen in love with. And I want to keep making videos, and they can't all be on this bike. So, unfortunately for me, but not for someone watching this video, this bike is for sale in the description, and the sale of this bike will go towards the coming videos and the bikes to come. I'll see you in the next video. Ta-da! Where's that knife? Where the f*** is that? Go on.
Freaking about.
Put it down on the knife.
Freaking out about anything sharp.
Yeah.
Like to perforate it.
Yeah.